Spider-Man Home trilogy and the third standalone Spider-Man movie in the MCU. This movie takes place not long after the events from Far From Home. At the end of that movie, in the mid-credits scene anyway, we discover that Mysterio, right before he was defeated, he revealed to the entire world that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, labeled Spider-Man as a murderer. And now Peter Parker is living his life with the world knowing him as Spider-Man, some supporting him, some seeing him as a killer. It's causing a lot of problems in him applying to college and, his relationship with MJ, his friendship with Ned. So with that, he meets up with Doctor Strange, asks, hey, can you create a spell that would make the world forget that I'm Spider-Man? And, Doctor Strange agrees to do so, but Peter unfortunately starts tampering with the spell because of his concerns, and because of that, now a bunch of villains from a bunch of different Spider-Man movies have come into this universe, and now Spider-Man has to find a way to stop them. And I can let you guys know straight up, this is going to be a spoiler review because frankly, that is the only way I'm going to be able to talk about this movie. If you haven't seen No Way Home yet, you have been warned. As you all know, I absolutely love Spider-Man. Spider-Man has been my favorite superhero since I was a kid. And this movie, Spider-Man No Way Home, was my most anticipated movie of the year. Not just for the reasons that I mentioned, but obviously I love the MCU, but it was also for what the movie appeared like it was going to be. I mean, when I heard in pre-production that people like Jamie Foxx, Alfred Molina, and Willem Dafoe were coming back to reprise their villains from previous Spider-Man movies, it got the wheels spinning. It's like, are we about to get a live-action Spider-Verse? You heard rumors, or maybe even some leaks, like, oh, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield could be coming into this movie. I'll touch more on that stuff later on. I had a lot of questions, and I was extremely excited to see this. At the same time, I did have my concerns. I'm just like, well, hang on, we could have a bunch of villains in this movie. The trailers officially confirmed that we were going to have a bunch of villains in this movie, and I'm thinking, having multiple villains in a Spider movie, that's not always worked out. I think I even said in my anticipation list video for this year, I think I said this movie's gonna go one or two ways. It's either gonna be a mess or it's gonna be fucking awesome. Thankfully, I'm here to tell you guys right now that this movie is pretty fucking awesome. So let's get right into just what's great about the movie. I mean, Tom Holland is great in this movie. I've said before, I still believe he is the best Peter Parker and Spider-Man we've ever gotten. I really feel he has nailed both sides of the role better than anyone before him has. But I really love what they've done with this character in this movie. I was really, really impressed with the development that he goes through in this movie. I'll touch more on that as this video goes along, but I had to say that out of the gate. Also, I really, really love the chemistry between Tom Holland and Zendaya in this movie. I mean, granted, it has been revealed that they're actually dating in real life, so I guess them portraying a couple is pretty easy and seamless for them. But in this one, I really bought into their chemistry. I really bought into the relationship they built, the banter they have between each other. It's cute, it's relatable, and I was on board with it. I also think this is the best Zendaya has been in this trilogy as MJ. In the previous two movies, she's very, snarky, sarcastic, kind of has this big wall in front of her emotionally. In this movie, she still has all that for sure, but you see a lot more vulnerability with her. You see a lot more emotion from her. You can see that she clearly totally cares about Peter. I think she showed the most of her emotion and vulnerability in this movie. I think it really worked for the movie. I was a little worried about Doctor Strange being in the movie, not necessarily about him being in the movie, but the kind of role he was going to have. I mean, I heard rumors for a while that he was going to kind of take over the Iron Man role, like he was going to be Peter's new mentor. When I heard that, I was a little bit hesitant because I didn't like the idea of Doctor Strange being a mentor towards Spider-Man, because I felt like the whole point to Spider-Man Far From Home was him finally maturing into just a full-fledged superhero. Like, he doesn't need a babysitter anymore. He doesn't need anyone watching over him anymore. Like, he's just his own guy. And thankfully, it's not really like that. Doctor Strange, I mean, he has an important role in this movie, but similar to Iron Man and Spider-Man Homecoming, he's not in the movie for very much. When he's in it, it's important, but it's not really like the Spider-Man and Doctor Strange movie. It is a Spider-Man movie, and Doctor Strange is just in it. I gotta tell you, it's so fucking awesome to see the previous villains from previous Spider-Man movies back. I mean, it just is. I mean, is it fan service? It is, but it all had a purpose towards the movie, which is what I appreciated. I would say some villains like the Lizard and the Sandman, they had their moments to shine in this movie, but they are a little bit in the backseat. Like, they're not as much in the forefront as Jamie Foxx as Electro and Alfred Molina as Doc Ock. Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin, which, do not worry, I'm going to touch on that very soon. But what I love is immediately when they show up into this universe and, Peter has to go out and fight some of these guys and capture some of these guys, you soon discover that, well, he discovers anyway, that they're main destiny in the universe they came from is to die fighting Spider-Man. On one side, once they're all being captured, Doctor Strange has a mentality, it's like, alright, we need to send them back to the universe, can't leave them here, it's gonna fuck with the multiverse, we need to send them back, they just need to meet their fate, because that's what they're meant to do. And what I like seeing, though, in this movie, though, is when it comes to Peter Parker, he doesn't want to do that. I mean, Peter just doesn't want to kill anybody, because, after talking with some of these villains, and, speaking with some of their characters, or interacting with some of them, namely with Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn in this situation, he doesn't see guys who are like totally evil. He sees characters who are damaged and that need help. And so he has that mentality. He's like, what if instead of sending them back to just die, we can cure them here and then send them back to give them a second chance? I will say, when I heard that at first, I was thinking in my mind, like, oh god, they're gonna Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom this shit. Like, Peter's just gonna free them into the world, and then, they're gonna go around and just kill people, and then, it's gonna be all his fault, and I was really hoping that was not going to be the case. But no, it's really not. Like, he wants to bring them in and help them, and what he's doing actually does help them. Because that is an area that I have always appreciated with the Spider-Man villains that we've got in these movies. None of them really started out as bad guys. A lot of them were these good people, maybe a little weird, maybe a little not right in the head, if you will, and then something happened to them that either messed them up or maybe the powers they got kind of corrupted them. This movie really establishes that, and what I also love that this movie lays down is it reminds everyone how smart Peter Parker is. Because he is really fucking smart. I mean, he's not at the genius level of guys like Tony Stark or Bruce Banner, no, but he's still a really, really smart kid. We have that really cool moment where, he's kind of like battling with Doctor Strange to get the box to save these villains, and because he understands geometry, he finds a way to actually trap Doctor Strange in the mirror dimension. That was cool. But no, he also has the moment where he's working with Doc Ock, and he basically creates a new inhibitor chip to put into his tentacles, and now Doc Ock, he doesn't hear the voices anymore, he's not really being influenced by that AI anymore, and he's good again, because before that inhibitor chip broke, he was a good guy in Spider-Man 2. And ultimately in Spider-Man 2, he died a good guy, and now he's good again. And you see, his gratefulness towards Peter Parker, and I'm just like, okay, maybe this sort of method can work. But it is also around this point, we really see Willem Dafoe completely shine as the Green Goblin, and I gotta say this right now. If it wasn't already established that Willem Dafoe as a Green Goblin is one of the greatest superhero villains ever, it is established in this movie, because holy fuck, boys. Is it possible to say that he's better as Green Goblin in No Way Home than he was in the 2002 Spider-Man? I don't think that's a stretch. And it really is such a Jekyll and Hyde thing with him. When he's Norman Osborn, he's just, this cautious, regretful, remorseful man. But when that Green Goblin alter ego comes out of him, I mean, this guy is just straight up menacing. He's a killer. He is evil. He kind of has that moment after, Peter helps Doc off. He kind of influences the other villains. It's like, no. Don't listen to this kid. These are not curses that we have. These are gifts. This is power. And he wants to take them away from us. That influences the villains to turn against Spider-Man. He just, goes on an absolute rampage against Spider-Man. A conflict that ultimately ends with him killing Aunt May. Which is a direction I'm really glad this movie took. This movie's dark. Like, we've been used to these Spider-Man movies being a little bit more lighthearted and, a little bit more, I don't know, easy on the tension, I guess you could say. As soon as this moment happens, nope, Green Goblin's just gonna come in, he's gonna impale Aunt May with the glider, and it's eventually gonna kill her. I do like the moment right before she dies, though, she tells Peter, it's like, with great power comes great responsibility. Some people might have had a problem with that because, it's gender flipping, Uncle Ben's supposed to say that, so she said that, but, she is essentially this universe's Uncle Ben and Aunt May, if you want to say that, so I was fine with it. I was able to roll with it. But no, this is a really emotional moment. It completely just breaks Peter. I mean, he's lost the only family he really has left, and what I like seeing now is he's like, you know what? Fuck saving them. Fuck saving him. When I see the Goblin again, he's gonna fucking die. It just makes sense for him to feel that way. It's kind of like, when in Civil War, when Iron Man discovered that the Winter Soldier killed his parents, essentially, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking kill you. The mentality doesn't go from, okay, I still need to save his life. It's like, no, you took away what I love, so I'm gonna take your fucking life. And you see it, Spider-Man's in a very broken state of mind. He's just got revenge on his mind right now. It's like, he needs some guidance. Thankfully, MJ and Ned just so happened to accidentally find some guidance in, oh boy, what we were all hoping for. We discovered Ned apparently can open portals with Doctor Strange's ring thing, so he's like, show me Peter Parker, and there's a moment where you see Spider-Man in this dark alley, and you're thinking like, oh, hey, that's Tom Holland. That's not Tom Holland. Oh, shit. And yeah, it's Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man that comes through the portal, takes off the mask, it's him, and the audience just goes crazy, and, you know, he's having his little banter with, you know, Ned and MJ. They're like, are you Spider-Man? He's like, look at me, I'm hanging from the wall right now. Like, what else do I need to do? So, of course, you know, Ned tries it again, and this time, who comes through the portal? It's Tobey fucking Maguire, and that's just, oh, shit. It's so fucking great. I gotta say this right now. It is so fucking awesome to see those two back as Spider-Man. Well, Peter Parker and Spider-Man, but, you know, I've said this before, like, even though Tom Holland is my favorite, I have loved both Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's own take on playing Peter Parker and Spider-Man, because I thought they both did a great job in their own movies. I mean, love or hate any of the movies that they did, I thought they were excellent. You know, in this moment, they eventually find, you know, Tom Holland's Spider-Man, and, you know, he's broken, he's revengeful, and they have just a real talk with him. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the scene in X-Men Days of Future Past when, you know, James McAvoy's Charles Xavier talks with Patrick Stewart's Charles Xavier. Because we all have that thing all the time. Like, if I could go back in time and tell my younger self this, I would do that. Well, in a lot of ways, in some ways anyway, they are kind of doing that here. Like, both Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, they meet with Tom Holland and they basically break down exactly how he's feeling. I mean, Tobey Maguire mentions it's like, listen, I lost my Uncle Ben. I chased down the guy who was responsible for it. He ended up dying in a fight with me, and I can tell you right now, it didn't make a difference. Andrew Garfield goes on to say, he's like, I lost the girl I loved, Gwen Stacy, and it was my fault, and I blame myself forever. They break down that Uncle Ben taught them with great power comes great responsibility, and they basically mention it's like, you can go on this, you know, mission of revenge and you can take this guy out, but it's not going to make a bit of difference in how you feel. It's unfortunately the risk and the sacrifice you take in being a hero. And now it's ultimately the three of them working together to try to save the villains, try to, you know, cure them of their powers and their corruption. And what I really, really just love seeing here is the chemistry between the three Spider-Man. I mean, you see the little glimpses here and there about what made each of them, you know, uniquely Spider-Man in their own ways. I mean, you know, you have Tom Holland and, you know, his quirkiness and, you know, his smarts, Andrew Garfield and his smarts and his witty banter, and, you know, Tobey Maguire's there with, like, the awkwardness that you can't help but root for. They all just blended so well together, and at no point did I ever felt like they were all trying to one-up each other, like, no, I'm a better Spider-Man than you, or I'm a better Spider-Man than you. It's like, they worked well together, and you can tell the three of them were having fun with it. Like, they were even all poking fun at, like, previous movies and, like, previous decisions that, you know, Sony or Marvel made that didn't work out in previous Spider-Man movies. And I'm glad that they got the roles that they got, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. I thought if they were going to appear in this movie, they wouldn't show up until, like, the final battle, and they would, you know, help, you know, Peter Parker out and taking down the villains. That's when I thought we'd see them again, but they have a much larger role than I was expecting. And it was a crucial role to the movie, which I was just so happy with. And then we get to this final battle, and this final battle is just, it's fucking awesome. I take on Sandman, the Lizard, Electro, who now looks way more comically accurate now, which is great to see. They're able to do battle with them, they're able to save each of them, but what I also love seeing is you have moments where Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield interact more with the villains from their own universe, and, you know, these villains, like, recognize them, and I like seeing that it gives a little bit more closure to maybe any storylines or any just moments that maybe you felt were unfulfilled between them. But then, of course, shit really fucking hits the fan when Green Goblin shows up. And I gotta tell you, I love the way Willem Dafoe looks as this Green Goblin. The mask is off. He's wearing a metallic suit with a cloak and goggles and just a really kind of like a green disfigured face at this point. He looks fucking great. Of course, initially, you know, Tom Holland sees him, he's like, I gotta take this fucker out, and, you know, Green Goblin's just here to just fuck his life up, and there comes a moment where, you know, similar to what happened with Gwen Stacy in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, MJ gets knocked off the roof, she's falling to her death, Tom Holland dives after her to save her, but Green Goblin takes Tom Holland out, so, you know, he can't get to her, and Andrew Garfield's on the roof, he sees what's happening, he's like, oh shit, so he dives after her. I gotta tell you, I think this was the scene in my audience anyway, I don't know about yours, but in my theater, this is when the audience went the most ballistic. Like, he dives after her, he catches her, he saves her life right before she hits the ground, he sticks the landing, and, you know, he's done it, he saved her life the way he wanted to save Gwen. What I love is, like, after he saved her, like, she's, you know, looking at him, he's got tears in his eyes, she's like, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm alright, but it's like, in that moment, you maybe feel like he feels a little bit of, remorse that he couldn't do that for Gwen. But you feel like he also feels some sort of redemption. It's like, I couldn't save my girlfriend, so I saved this Spider-Man's girlfriend. Now all the other villains have basically been cured, they've been saved. It's Tom Holland just doing battle with the Green Goblin, and he is just punching the shit out of this guy. Like, he wants blood, he wants to kill him. At one point he picks up the glider, he's ready to kill him, and I'm just like, oh shit, is he gonna fucking do this? But no, Toby intervenes, takes the glider away. He's like, this is not the way you're supposed to do it. And when he's not looking, just Goblin impales Tobey Maguire. And I'm sitting there like, they're not gonna kill off Tobey Maguire, are they? Like, they can't do that, can they? No, they don't. I mean, yeah, he got stabbed in the back, but he lived because they're not gonna kill off Tobey Maguire. Well, why would they? Why would they? But Peter takes this moment, impales Green Goblin with the injection, and now he's reverted back to Norman Osborn. And what I love seeing in Willem Dafoe's acting is, like, when he shifts to Norman Osborn, you see regret, you see remorse, you see just fear and look in his face like, what have I done? Like I said, it's Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and Willem Dafoe just crushes it. But unfortunately it's not over. At this point, Doctor Strange has gotten out of the mirror dimension, but now the multiverse is really starting to break in. A bunch of villains from a bunch of different Spider-Man universes are trying to come in. You see Scorpion, you see Rhino, you see a few others. But before they can, Peter makes, and this is just emotionally what wipes everybody out. He looks at Doctor Strange and he says, you need to cast a spell. Make everyone in the world forget who Peter Parker is. Everybody. Because that will seal the multiverse, it will prevent these people from coming in, and, everyone will be saved. But Doctor Strange explains to them, it's like, if you do this, everyone will forget you. People will forget that you helped save the universe. Everyone in the Avengers will forget you ever existed. MJ and Ned will both forget you ever existed. And Peter's all like, I know, but that's the way it needs to happen. Says goodbye, has a big group hug with, Toby and Andrew Garfield, and you're just like, alright, fulfillment there. But really, it's like, in the moment, he's saying goodbye to Ned and MJ, and, it's just, everyone's emotional, they're crying, and, he tries to reassure them, it's like, I'm gonna come and find you guys. I will make you remember me. Like I say, this is really where Zendaya's acting really stood out for me, because, she's getting emotional, she's like, I don't want to forget you, I don't want to lose you, and it's just, you feel it here, you really feel she has developed a love for Peter. They kiss, she finally says, I love you, and, she stops him from saying, though, it's like, I want to hear you say it when you find me. So, the spell is completed, and yet everyone forgets who Peter Parker is. That's the moment that I know emotionally wiped out a lot of people. Emotionally, it affected me. It didn't quite hit me as, the end of Avengers Endgame did, but there were sniffles in my audience, I can promise you that. And then we reach the end of the movie, Peter's just living in his own little apartment. He then makes a new Spidey suit, which I will say is more accurate to the one that, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield wore, which I thought was great. I like seeing, the OG Spider-Man suit back. But yeah, the world doesn't know who Peter Parker is. I mean, Spider-Man's still kind of seen as a vigilante, but they don't know who he is. There's a moment he goes into the diner where Ned and MJ hang out. Well, MJ works at this, Ned hangs out there, and, he has a letter, he's like planning to read it to them and explain who he is, but he ultimately decides not to because it's just not the right time. I'm sure if they make future Spider-Man movies, they will touch on that. But it's definitely going to be interesting when it comes to future Spider-Man movies, because now we can ask ourselves, it's like, okay, I think the contract between the MCU and Sony is done after this one, so this might be the end of Spider-Man in the MCU. Going forward, we might get some more grounded Spider-Man movies. We might only get, characters that are original to the Spider-Man movies that we've gotten, which frankly I'd be fine with. I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll rework the contract and one day Spider-Man will rejoin the Avengers and, they'll keep it in this universe, but it's going to be interesting to see, for sure. We do get a couple of post-credit scenes. We get a mid-credit scene where we see Tom Holland as Eddie Brock. He's just sitting in a bar asking about basically what's happened in the MCU. You got Venom speaking to him, but and you're thinking, oh gosh, he's going to be in this universe now, and, he's going to fight with, Tom Holland, or they're at least going to meet or something, and then, end of the scene, he disappears and goes back to his universe, which, I would say, that was an area that I was just like, I would have liked to see more of him. I want to finally see the two of them in a movie together, which I'm hoping still happens, because, at the very end of that scene, you see a little bit of the symbiote has been left behind, it starts to crawl away, so now you're just like, okay, are we going to get the black-suited Spider-Man? Or are we going to get a new Venom in this universe? I don't know, a lot of questions are now, running through my mind, but it does lead me to believe that we are going to get Venom in a Spider-Man movie at some point. I hope it's Tom Hardy's, but we'll just have to see what happens. And the post-credit scene is really, it's just a trailer for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which looks good, by the way. It kind of took the route that, you know, in Captain America: The First Avenger, the post-credit scene was a trailer for the Avengers. I don't know much about what that movie's going to be about, but I'm just hyped to see it. But all in all, Spider-Man No Way Home was just fucking great. It was such a satisfying conclusion to the Spider-Man trilogy. The entire cast works great together. I think Tom Holland fucking kills it in this role. I loved seeing the chemistry between Tom Holland and Zendaya. I really bought into them as this couple, just more so than I have at any point in this trilogy. It's great to see the villains back. I love that they all had a key role in the story. They're not just here for fan service. Willem Dafoe in particular absolutely crushes it in this movie. I loved seeing him back as the Goblin. He's great. Like, Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, I think we can say is one of the best super villains on movies we've ever seen. Or in movies we've ever seen. You know what I meant. The action's great, the fight scenes are great. When Tom Holland's fighting these villains from different universes and it harkens back to the way that the other Spider-Man would fight them in those movies, you feel the nostalgia. It is so awesome to see Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield back. They both kill it as their Spider-Man. They're fucking great here. I love the chemistry they had with Tom Holland. The movie has a very emotional and very dark tone to it at times, which is not what I was expecting. It's a very mature Spider-Man movie, which is what I appreciated, because I think we needed it to be that. If I have a flaw with this movie, I mean, it does take a little bit of time to get going. I mean, the first half is just, him hunting down the villains, and it's a little bit corny and, all that fun stuff, but I wasn't like upset with it. I wasn't like bored with it or anything like that, because the directions I was hoping they would take in this movie, they did take. And also, it was very cool to see Daredevil in the beginning of this movie. I mean, he's only in there for one scene, but I'm not very interested if we're going to see him in more Spider-Man movies. Just, the movie opened a lot of questions for a lot of possibilities that I'm definitely excited for. And in the end, this movie might have been fan service for sure, but I don't think there's a single Spider-Man fan in this world that would walk out of this movie unsatisfied. This movie did its job, and then some. That's all I gotta say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video, and as always, don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.